When I first heard that we were developing a recipe for a meatless meat sauce for pasta, I was pretty surprised. I mean, I'd never heard of such a thing before, but today Becky's going to introduce it to us.
That's right. Our viewers have been asking for this recipe.
For more vegetarian options.
That's right, and this is so good, I promise you won't even miss the meat.
Okay, so this is a vegetarian version of sort of a weeknight bolognese.
You got it. So we're starting with 5 tablespoons of olive oil.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. We're not using any meat, so we want to replace some of that richness, some of that fat that you would get if you were making a traditional meat sauce.
Okay, so start with a lot of olive oil.
That's right. Medium-high heat. We'll let that heat up while we move on over here to some mushrooms.
Ah, I see. So it's a meaty tasting ingredient that you're going to put into a vegetarian sauce.
That's right. Mushrooms have a lot of umami flavor. Their cell walls are also made up of something called chitin. Chitin doesn't break down over heat, so the mushrooms are going to maintain that nice chewy texture. You know, most vegetables, you cook them long enough, they
turn to mush.
Complete mush, not mushrooms. So they're good texturally. So we have 10 ounces. We're going to put them in the food processor here. We'll do half at a time, do them in 2 batches.
So you're going to break them down to a fine sort of brown meat texture?
Yeah, kind of a pebbly texture, 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. We'll pulse them about 7 to 10 times. That looks pretty good. So we're using cremini mushrooms. They're relatively neutral tasting. We didn't want anything too earthy like porcini or shiitake. And we're not using a ton of mushrooms. This isn't a mushroom sauce. We just want them to add that nice texture and that mild flavor that we're talking about. So let's do the second batch here. That looks good. So we'll get our mushrooms into the oil here. And in goes a teaspoon of salt. All that liquid has to come out so they can get nice and brown and develop all that savory flavor that we're talking about. So we're going to let these cook for about 8 minutes. While these mushrooms cook, we'll move over to the onions. I have 1 onion chopped up here.
And so you're going to mince it in the food processor?
That's right. Same thing as the mushrooms, 7 to 10 pulses, just to break it down. So let the mushrooms go for 8 minutes, and then we'll add the onions.
Sounds good.
It is looking good in there.
Yeah, they've really cooked down.
Yeah, right? So that's been 8 minutes. So let's get the onions in the pot. We want the onions to start to soften. We'll let them cook for 5 minutes, and then we'll continue.
All right.
So it's been about 5 minutes. I can tell you like how it smells.
It smells really good.
Yeah.
And instead of browning the meat, you're browning the vegetables to get that flavor.
That's right. And you can see there's little bits of fond starting to develop on the bottom of the pot. That means lots of flavor. So let's add a 1/4 cup of tomato paste, which has a lot of those umami compounds that I was talking about earlier. So I want this to start to brown. I want it to turn rust colored in the bottom of the pot. That's a signal that the sugars have started to caramelize and they taste even better. So let this go for a minute or 2 here. So I have 1 more tablespoon of olive oil, 5 garlic cloves minced up, 1 1/4 teaspoons of dried oregano, and just a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper flakes.
Just a little kick.
Yeah, not enough to make it spicy, but enough to give it a little zing. I'm mixing this with some oil. I'm trying to coat all the little pieces of garlic with oil so they'll start to sizzle right when they go into the pot.
Makes sense?
Look at that, nice rust color.
Yeah, you can see that color of the tomato paste really did brown.
Yeah, it looks great. I'm just going to turn the heat down to medium here.
Pass the baton back to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to make a clearing in the center of the pot here. That's how the garlic can start to cook right away. It can have direct access to the bottom of the pot. So we'll let this cook for about 30 seconds. Ooh, that smells good.
It does.
I have 28 ounces of crushed tomatoes. That's going to go into the pot. And then I have 2 cups of vegetable broth. We'll just let this simmer for 5 minutes, then we'll come back.
All right.
So our sauce has been simmering for 5 minutes.
It smells really good.
Yeah, doesn't it? I can tell by your face. You're going to like it.
I don't have a poker face at all.
No. Now we're going to try and bulk it up a little bit, give it some nice heartiness and make it really satisfying. Ultimately, we landed on chickpeas. So I have 1 can of chickpeas here that I drained. They have a really nice tender texture when they cook up and they give that nice bulk that we're looking for. We're going to put them right in the food processor and we're just going to pulse these just like everything else 7 to 10 times, break them down to rough 1/4 inch size. All right, we want to rinse these off. They have some starch in them, and if we don't rinse them, then our sauce might get too thick. You can see it's kind of cloudy. That's all the starch coming off. Now we'll put this into our pot, and we'll let this cook for 15 more minutes.
So the total simmering time here, because there's not a lot of meat, is pretty short.
It is very short. So this needs to simmer for 15 minutes. So while that cooks, we'll drop the pasta.
All right.
So I have spaghetti here today. This is such a thick, hearty sauce. You could use any shape that you like. So a tablespoon of salt, our usual. We'll put the pasta in. We'll cook that till it's just al dente, and then we'll combine it with the sauce, and it'll be time to eat.
All right.
So I think our pasta's done. If you want to give it a quick check for me.
Only one way to see if your pasta's done, and that is not to throw it at the wall. That's to taste it.
We're good?
Perfectly al dente.
Awesome.
So I'm going to drain the pasta and save a little bit of the cooking water.
Yeah, just in case we need to thin the sauce out a little bit, you always want to save some of your pasta water.
That's right. Here in the test kitchen, we test everything, including whether or not you should shake the colander as you drain pasta. And the result is no, don't shake the colander. Leave some of that water in there because that'll help loosen up the sauce.
That looks great. Let's finish our sauce here. I just have 2 tablespoons of fresh basil. That'll give it a little bit of freshness, a little bit of color. Now, I haven't told you one of the best parts of this recipe. We actually made a double batch.
Nice.
Yeah, so you could put half of it in the freezer, you could put it in the fridge for a couple days.
I like recipes like this.
Me too.
Gold in the bank, as I like to think of it.
Yes, that's right. So this is an 8-ounce ladle, so I'm gonna take 3 cups, 3 ladlefuls, and we'll mix it with the pasta.
Looks delicious.
Yeah, you can see it has some really nice texture to it. So you can freeze that extra sauce for up to 2 months.
I love it.
You wanna give me a little bit of that pasta water, just loosen things up a little bit. It's nice and starchy, has a little bit of salt in it. My stomach's growling, did you hear that?
I did hear it.
Let me serve us up here. All right, that's looking good.
That looks very good.
Let's add a tiny bit more sauce.
Oh, I'm with you. Are you a twirler?
I am a twirler, how about yourself?
Yes. It has a really meaty flavor, even though there's no meat in it. Hearty.
I told you I could do it.
You did. You nailed it. To make this sauce, pulse cremini mushrooms and chickpeas in the food processor. Build a hearty tomato sauce with sautéed aromatics, canned tomatoes, and vegetable broth, and finish with fresh basil. From our test kitchen to your kitchen, a game-changing recipe for meatless meat sauce. You can get this recipe and all the recipes from this season, along with our tastings, testings, and select episodes at our website, americastestkitchen.com. Thanks for watching America's Test Kitchen. What'd you think?
Well, leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or you can just say hello.
You can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
I'll see you later.